Level 1 is picking objects off the floor. This is the foundation that I think should be in just about every person's program. Anytime you lift an object, you're using your back muscles. In the gym, we call it deadlift and have added so many layers of complexity, cues, and variations to this lift. The thing they all share in common is that they work your back. If you can lift more weights and do more reps with it over time, I guarantee your back will get bigger and stronger. Primarily, we're looking at the spinal erectors that, as the name suggests, run up the sides of your spine. These are extremely important postural muscles and help with giving you the illusion of a thick, well-developed back. Deadlifts also work big areas like your lats and traps and your glutes, hamstring adductors, and even your calves to an extent. Collectively, this can all be called the posterior chain. I like to use a few different variations of this to target different muscles a little bit more and to fit it around different bodies and goals, but it's all working your back. Level 2, we're going to address the two main problems with deadlifts: the range of motion that takes your back muscles through, and the total body or systemic fatigue that gets generated when you do them frequently. To counter this, we're going to add pull-ups. Immediately, we go from a broad shotgun stimulus to your entire body that also happens to train your back, and we're zooming in like a sniper on the upper body and primarily the lats. Hit a set of well-executed pull-ups or chin-ups and your back will be toasted. But there'll also be some other stuff going on through the upper back, arms, and shoulders. Now, if you can't do pull-ups, they're incredibly versatile and scalable to suit your level. We have band assistance, lowering only reps, bodyweight assistance, and the rack chin as solid options. Or you can simply opt for the lat pull-down or other machines. That's perfectly fine, and if anybody judges you for that, then rest assured they're probably not a very good person. Level 3 is a supported row, another foundational movement. The row gives you more opportunities to add external stability and constraints to the lift. The more stability you can create, the easier it will be to put as much work into the one target area as possible. Your brain isn't thinking about managing 100 different cues or your body floating in space like on a pull-up, so you can direct 100% of your attention to the one thing: pulling. The most basic is the standard dumbbell row. I like to use the same side leg forwards for extra stability, but you've also got bench support and machines to work with. Make sure as you pull on any row, try to keep your forearm perpendicular to your upper arm to prevent the biceps from taking over the motion. Level 4 is starting to get into the details, the unsupported row. Now we have a lot more to manage. It's not just pulling to work your lats and traps, but your spinal erectors and legs are working together to stabilize your body. With more to manage, there's more room for error with momentum and bad form. We overcome this with 3 main cues: getting a slow eccentric, a pause and stretch at the bottom, and a controlled squeeze at the top of each rep. Because if your goal is to build as much muscle as humanly possible, there are very few reasons, if any, as to why you should move with more momentum or body English or in any way being out of control of the weight. This doesn't mean that we should all be stuck rigid robots, but there is a difference between moving fluidly under control throughout a range of motion, say by leaning back as I do to better hit my back on a lat pull down, versus swinging my body back to cheat the weight down to help me complete a rep that otherwise would have failed. So on that, level 5 would be adding more round back options to your repertoire. There is nothing quite like getting a full deep stretch forwards both in your upper back and your spinal erectors on rows with a barbell or a cable or a machine. Again, there's more room for error here, so only be doing this once you've mastered the basic unsupported row and can maintain quality technique on it all. But rounding the back is all about getting the extra stretch and hitting the lengthened position for your back muscles, which brings us to level 6, the lengthened bias, or emphasizing the stretch position through the exercises and machines you choose. We're getting into the real nerdy weeds here, because there's a very big problem with just about all back exercises that most people don't realize. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. So when I get to a full stretch, it's just not that challenging. Contrast that with, say, a bench press or a squat, where holding the fully stretched position is agony, and a 2-second pause feels like the last 30 seconds on the microwave when you're waiting for that fresh bag of popcorn to finish its final pops. Unlike just about every other body part, there are very few free weight back exercises that challenge you in this fully stretched position. Instead, most back exercises challenge you more in the complete opposite end, the fully shortened position. And more research is coming out showing that the lengthened or stretched position is more anabolic and may even be more anabolic than going through a full range of motion. But it's not just enough to say to go to the stretch position, we have to be challenged in that position, which we're simply not on many of these exercises. Because I can passively hang out at the bottom of a pull-up or a row for a very long time. My grip and my erectors will fatigue a lot faster than the rest of my back muscles. And this is where different machines may come in handy. Machines don't just lock you into one position to help stabilize you on an exercise. Some of the smarter ones are designed so they're harder when the muscles are stretched out. One you'll see in many gyms is the T-bar row. When your arms are stretched out, the weight is furthest from the pivot point and at its heaviest. As you pull up, it gets significantly easier. If you don't have a T-bar row or a fancy machine, your two free weight options are a landmine or jamming a barbell into the corner and the pullover. Another option that you can also use immediately in all of your training is to incorporate partial reps in the lengthened position on all of your back exercises. Once you've hit your failure point on a traditional full range pull motion, you'll find you can get more out of the first half of the range still. So do a few more reps there till you hit another failure point to get that complete stimulation. For level 7, we're taking a slight diversion away from pure muscle building and looking at bending your spine. It's been demonized and fear-mongered for decades, but it's one of the most important things you should be doing on a regular basis. The spine was meant to bend. We do it every single day in our daily activities, and it's something we should expose to stress in the gym under controlled settings to improve its capacity. If you never train it, you'll not only get weaker, but you'll probably find yourself less able to bend it as effectively over time and lose access to that range of motion. I like Jefferson curls and QL side bends to stretch and strengthen the deeper muscles around the spine. You won't be as strong on these exercises to begin with, but you absolutely can build strength here over time. For level 8, let's have a look at optimizing exercises. Everything we've done so far is honestly all you need to train and develop your back. Incorporate all of those levels into your workouts and I guarantee you'll get exceptional results over time. But let's have a little bit of fun and try to tweak things to try to milk out that last little bit of gains. And let's do a shootout between the traditional pullover against Dr. Mike Israetel's favorite technique for lat prayers. Both are solid choices for the lats, but the lat prayer loses on stability as you're holding your body in space, which means more to manage, whilst the pullover loses on challenging you throughout the entire range of motion, as by the time your arms are above you, the weight is essentially zero. So how can we make this better? You've got two options. First, take the regular pullover and place it on a decline. This immediately makes the exercise more challenging throughout the final portions of the range of motion without dropping off a huge amount at the stretch. The second is to take the lat prayer and spin it around and add a bench, and voila, we have a cable pullover for those of you who don't have a pullover machine. Good stability and plenty of resistance throughout the entire range of motion. But there is one more level for us to consider. The lats perform this action here, shoulder extension, which is why we choose pull downs, rows, and pullovers to train them. But the best way to train them can get a little bit murky and confusing, because when my arm is completely overhead like this, the lats can't pull my arm forwards and down as effectively. Instead, we'll see stuff like this guy here kicking in to pick up the slack. It's not till we get to around this point here where the lats are like, all right, I got this, and take over. And that's what we see in the research. So if we're looking for a really good way to stretch and train the lats, is it really going to be the pullover? Or is it actually going to be something that's stretching up maybe to around this point and then coming maybe more around the body instead? I don't know. No one really does at this stage. We can only make strong, educated guesses and start playing around to see what feels best based on both research and personal experiences. For now, I still use and enjoy pullovers and the variations. And I also use cross-body motions. And of course, I use rows, pull downs, and deadlifts. So if you've skipped ahead and are looking for A, the secret sauce, or B, something super complex and fancy that will blow your mind and give you something interesting to bring up at the next party you go to try to impress that girl you've been eyeing off, prepare to be extremely disappointed. With training, more complex doesn't always mean better. There's a chance you can get extra gains from these last few levels, but if you're leapfrogging past the first 3 to 5 levels, you're going to miss the main work that will probably contribute the most to your overall gains. Some of the best backs in the world were built simply for picking up heavy objects, pulling vertically and horizontally with varying amounts of stability and movements at the spine. You can absolutely make very compelling arguments for the rest, particularly stretch emphasis training, but as long as you're adding in a little bit of variety over time, for most of us, it's not worth worrying too much about. Just get in and train.